somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, depending on which evidence you trust, something happened that had never happened before in the history of life on Earth. A wild predator chose to be near a human, not because it was captured, not because it was tamed by force, but because something in the relationship between two very different species turned out to be useful for both of them. And from that moment, the world changed in ways that neither the humans nor the wolves could have possibly understood. The dog is the oldest domesticated animal on Earth. Older than cattle, older than sheep, older than agriculture itself. Before humans figured out how to grow food, before they built permanent settlements, before they developed writing or metal or wheels, they already had dogs. The partnership between humans and wolves predates almost every other thing we think of as civilization. And yet, how it happened, exactly, is one of the most fiercely debated questions in all of evolutionary biology. Here is what we know. Dogs are descended from wolves. All of them. The Chihuahua and the Great Dane and the Border Collie and the Siberian Husky all share a common ancestor with the gray wolf. Not with any modern wolf alive today, but with a now extinct population of wolves that lived alongside humans tens of thousands of years ago. The genetic evidence for this is overwhelming. What is not overwhelming, and what researchers have argued about for decades, is exactly how the relationship began. The oldest theory, and still the most intuitive one, is that ancient humans captured wolf pups and raised them. The idea goes like this. A hunter finds a wolf den, kills the adults, and brings home the pups. The pups are raised around humans, become accustomed to human presence, and eventually breed with each other. Over many generations, the tamer individuals survive and reproduce more successfully, and the wolves gradually become something new. This theory has a problem. Wolf pups raised by humans do become attached to the humans who raise them, but they do not become dogs. They become tame wolves, unpredictable, difficult to manage, deeply bonded to their specific human handlers, but not generalizable to the broader human social world the way dogs are. Researchers like Raymond Coppinger, who spent decades studying dog behavior, argued that you simply cannot get from wolf to dog through deliberate human taming. The gap is too large. Something else happened. Coppinger's own theory, which became enormously influential, is that dogs domesticated themselves. Not metaphorically, literally. His hypothesis, developed with his wife Lorna Coppinger, goes like this. When humans began living in semi-permanent camps and settlements, those camps produced waste. Food scraps, bones, discarded materials. Wolves that were slightly less fearful of humans, wolves with a smaller flight distance, meaning they could tolerate being closer to humans without fleeing, had access to a reliable food source that more fearful wolves could not exploit. Over many generations, the less fearful wolves out-reproduced the more fearful ones. They did not need to be captured or tamed. They self-selected for tolerance of human proximity, and in doing so, gradually evolved into something that was no longer quite a wolf. This process is not as strange as it sounds. Russian geneticist Dmitry Belyaev demonstrated it in one of the most remarkable experiments in the history of biology. Beginning in the 1950s, Belyaev began selectively breeding silver foxes, choosing only the tamest individuals in each generation for reproduction. Within just a few generations, shockingly few, the foxes began to change, not just behaviorally, but physically. They developed floppy ears, their tails began to curl, their coats changed color. They began to whine and lick their handlers and seek human attention. In selecting only for tameness, Belyaev had inadvertently produced animals that looked and behaved remarkably like dogs. The physical changes that came along with behavioral tameness were not separate traits. They were connected. They all emerged together from a single selection pressure. This experiment illuminated something profound about what happened with wolves. The physical characteristics we associate with dogs, the floppy ears, the shortened snouts, the curled tails, the spotted coats, the juvenile facial features, are not traits that humans deliberately selected for. They are the byproducts of selection for a single thing: tolerance of human proximity. A wolf that was slightly less afraid of humans would, over many generations and without any deliberate human intervention, begin to look and behave more and more like a dog. But the story does not end with self-domestication. Because once proto-dogs existed, something else began to happen. Humans and these proto-dogs began to develop a relationship that was genuinely mutual. Dogs could smell and hear things humans could not. They could track prey, alert to danger, and locate resources across distances and in darkness that left human senses useless. Humans, in turn, provided food, protection, and access to prey they might not otherwise reach. The partnership was not just tolerated, it was actively beneficial for both parties. And as the relationship deepened, something happened that has no parallel in the domestication of any other animal. Dogs developed the ability to read human social cues, not just to respond to human commands, but to follow human gaze, to understand human pointing gestures, to interpret human facial expressions and emotional states. Researcher Brian Hare at Duke University has conducted extensive research showing that dogs are better at reading human communicative intentions than chimpanzees are, despite the fact that chimpanzees share far more of our DNA. A dog understands what it means when you point at something. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, largely does not. This capacity evolved in dogs through their long association with humans. It is not a general intelligence. It is a specialized social intelligence, a deep attunement to the human mind that developed over tens of thousands of years of living together. And then there is the oxytocin finding, which changes the story entirely. Researcher Miho Nagasawa at Azabu University in Japan conducted a series of studies examining what happens in the brains of both humans and dogs when they make eye contact. What she found was striking. When a dog and its owner gaze into each other's eyes, both experience a surge in oxytocin, the same neurochemical associated with bonding between human mothers and their infants. The same mechanism that evolution developed to bind human parents to their children was somehow co-opted by dogs to bind themselves to humans. This was not a deliberate strategy. It was not planned by anyone. It emerged from tens of thousands of years of mutual selection pressure, each species gradually shaping the other, until two animals from entirely different evolutionary lineages developed a bond that has neurochemical roots as deep as the bond between a mother and her child. Think about what your dog knows about you. It knows when you are sad. It knows when you are angry. It knows your routine in ways you have never explicitly taught it. It reads your face, your posture, your tone of voice, and your breath with an accuracy that no other animal on Earth, including our closest primate relatives, can match. This is not coincidence. This is the product of a relationship so old and so deep that it has literally changed the biology of two separate species. Your dog is not a tamed wolf. It is something that never existed before humans and wolves found each other. It is a new kind of animal, shaped by one of the longest and most intimate partnerships in the history of life. And somewhere in the middle of that story, both species reached across a gap that should have been uncrossable, and something entirely new came into being. If this changed how you see your dog or the idea of dogs, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me which part surprised you most. And if you want more of this, subscribe to Simply Odd. A new video drops every week. The next one might explain something you have wondered about your whole life without ever knowing what to ask.